Biggest mistake that I've witnessed and observed with new real estate investors raising money is they talk too much and they try to talk people into doing something. And you know what? That's not the way to go. I've got
If you're a real estate investor and are wondering how to raise and leverage private money to make more profit on every deal, then you're in the right place. On Raising Private Money, we'll speak with new and seasoned investors to dissect their deals and extract the best tips and strategies to help you get the money, because the money comes first. Now here's your host, Jay Conner.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode. I'm your host, Brandon Cobb, co-founder of HPG Capital. I've got an awesome guest on the show today. We're going to be talking about raising money along with a lot of other things. Jay Conner's on the show. He's been in the investing game since 2003. He's rehabbed over 450 homes. He makes on average over $71,000. He's completed over 52 million in real estate transactions. He's consulted one-on-one with over 2,000 investors. He's a leading expert on private money and raising money. So if you're in a position where you need to raise money for your business, especially real estate, you're going to want to listen to this. Jay, welcome to the show.
Oh, my lands, Brandon. Thank you so much for inviting me to come along and talk about my most favorite subject that I'm so excited about, that being private money. And that's because simply private money has had more of an impact than any other strategy that we've implemented in our real estate investing business. I've never missed out on a real estate deal since 2009, since we started using private money.
I love it. We're going to talk about it. We raise a lot of private money for our business. So I'm interested to get into the tips and tricks and strategies that you're using. There's ways to buy real estate with like no money down, using all these different strategies. I want to get into that. Before we do, what's your story for those in the audience listening that don't know who you are?
Sure. Well, I started investing in single family houses. Now, I've done other types of real estate as well. I've done condominium development from the ground up. I've done a shopping center from the ground up. But my main focus has been single family houses since 2003 here in Eastern North Carolina, in a really, really small market, only 40,000 people in our total market. We do 2 to 3 deals a month, single family houses. So not a lot of deals. However, as of now, currently, our average profits are $82,000 per deal. And I don't say that to brag in any kind of way. I say that to make a point. And the point is, you don't have to be in a big market to make a lot of money. I'd rather
Yeah.
be a big fish in a small pond. And if you've got your marketing turned on and you're finding the deals, you got your leads coming in, and you've got your funding lined up ready to go, then you can have a significant amount of business in a very, very small market. In fact, there's an argument to be made that you're really, really in a much better position if you're focused in a smaller market than competing with all those other real estate competitors, in big markets, et cetera. But anyway, I digress. So I started investing in single family houses in 2003. From 2003 until 2009, to fund my real estate deals, Brandon, all I knew to do was go to the local bank and get on my hands and knees and put my hands underneath my chin and, raise my skirt up so the banker can look at all my personal assets and pull my credit score and all that stuff and borrow money from the local bank. When I was doing that, the bank made the rules. They set the interest rate. They did all the underwriting and et cetera, which of course, that's what we understand is the normal way that you borrow money. Well, that worked out fine from 2003 until January 2009. And Brandon, in January 2009, I picked up my phone. Believe it or not, we still have handsets here in North Carolina with cords attached to them. Most people don't even know what that is.
For those just listening, he's got a phone sitting by his desk that's got like the cord attached to it.
So I picked up the phone and I called my banker. His name was Steve. This was January 2009. Now, bear in mind, Steve and I have been doing a lot of business from 2003 until January 2009. We did a ton of deals. He had funded a bunch of real estate houses for me. Anyway, I had 2 deals under contract. I called up Steve to tell him about the 2 deals, you know, the numbers, etc., which Steve and I had had this conversation many, many times. Well, I learned like in just a few seconds, that my line of credit had been closed with no notice to me. I wish I'd known ahead of time before I put houses under contract and tied up earnest money, etc. Well, I learned that my line of credit had been closed. And I said to Steve, Steve, what in the world are you talking about that you've closed my line of credit? I got a great credit score. We got a great relationship, never late on payments. We got a 6-year history here. What do you mean you're shutting down my line of credit? And Steve said, Jay, don't you know there's a global financial crisis going on right now? I said, no, but you just gave me a financial crisis right now by not funding my 2 deals, and I don't have any other way to fund them. So I hung up the phone, Brandon, and I sat here, and I'm going to share with you and your audience right now a very, very important, powerful question that I asked myself. You know, the power is in asking the right questions. And I asked myself this question, and the question I'm going to share will help anybody fix any problem they've got going on in their life. I don't care if it's financial, relationships, health, career, it don't matter. Whatever your problem is, here's the question to help fix your problem. And by the way, an abundant mindset says there's always an answer. There's always an answer. In fact, there's always more than one answer. So here's the question I asked myself. I said, Jay, who do you know? By the way, Brandon, these people going around saying every problem is an opportunity, I want to throw up. I didn't have an opportunity. I had a problem, right? I had these deals under contract, no way to fund them. So I asked myself, and here's the powerful question. I said, Jay, to myself, I said, Jay, who do you know that can help fix your problem? You know, it's not how, it's who. Who do you know? And when I ask myself that question, who do I know that can help fix my problem of not having funding and financing for my real estate deals, I immediately thought of Jeff Blankenship. Now, Jeff Blankenship is a dear friend of mine and my wife, Carol Joy. We've known him for years. And in 2009, he was living in Greensboro, North Carolina, and he was investing in real estate. So I called up Jeff, and I told Jeff my problem. I told him what had just happened. I told him that conversation I just had with Steve, the banker. And immediately Jeff said, well, welcome to the club, Jay. I said, what club? He said, the club of losing your line of credit at the bank. My bank just cut me off last week. I said, oh, Lord, I've called the wrong person. He's in the same boat I am. I said, well, Jeff, what you going to do to fund your deals? He said, well, have you ever heard of private money? I said, no. He said, have you ever heard of self-directed IRAs and how people, individuals, can loan money to real estate investors from their retirement accounts and earn interest either tax deferred or tax free?
Yeah.
I said, no, I never heard of that. So I knew Jeff had told me something. So I hung up the phone and I researched private money. I researched how people can have a self-directed IRA and loan money out to real estate investors. So what did I do? First thing I did is I put my program together. My what? My program. I put that together to where I was going to teach people in my warm market, people I've already got connections with, I go to church with, go to the Rotary Club with, etc. I could teach them what private money is and how they could earn high rates of return safely and securely. So let me stop right there. Here's a really, really important learning point that I had to learn. You see, when you borrow money from the bank or hard money lenders for your real estate deals, they make the rules. They are the underwriter, which that sounds right. If you're loaning the money, you ought to make the rules. That's traditionally what we think. They set the interest rate, they set the frequency of payments, they set the length of the note, etc. But in this world of private money, the lender doesn't make the rules. We, as the borrower, make the rules, and that is a 180-degree shift, going in the opposite direction. You see, we're not asking, begging, chasing, persuading, or trying to talk anybody into loaning us money. You see, here's what's interesting, Brandon. I've never asked anybody for money since January 2009. I've never asked anybody for money. And they said, Jay, well, how do you have $8.5 million of private money from individuals funding your deals and you never ask for money? Well, here's the secret to that question. I put on my teacher hat. I put on my teacher hat. I put on my private money teacher hat. And I went about teaching people that I already had a connection with. Now you're going to run out of people with your own connection. I get that, and I got a fix for that as well. But I started teaching people in my own network, people I already know, got an association with, what private money is, how they can earn high rates of return safely and securely. Do they want to use investment capital? Do they want to use retirement funds? And I taught them my program. I taught them, here's how my program works. Here's the interest rate I pay. Here's how you can get your money back in case of an emergency. Here's how you're protected. If I lose my mind and move to the Caribbean, how are you protected? How do you get your money back? So that's the program that I went about teaching people. And I was able to raise $2,150,000 in less than 90 days by simply teaching, leading with a servant's heart. You know, here's what's interesting, Brandon. Not one of my 47 private lenders that I have today ever heard of private money, ever heard of self-directed IRAs, ever heard of this world until I put on my teacher hat and I taught them what private money is and how they can earn these kinds of rates of return safely and securely. Now, you know, there's something that's got a smell to it, and that word is desperation. Desperation has got a smell to it. What I mean by that is, if you are desperate, I mean, the worst time to be raising private money is when you need it for a deal. That's the worst time to be raising private money. The best time and easiest time to be raising private money is when you don't need it for a deal. So that's why it's so important to separate the conversations with your new prospective potential private lenders that's never heard of private money before. You separate the conversation between the program that you're offering, the private lending program you're offering, and you know what the opportunity you're offering them, and then having a deal for them to fund. Very, very important. Separate that. Don't put that together. You're asking them to make too many decisions if you're talking about private money and you've got a deal for them to fund. So once they're all excited about the program, they say, yeah, I want to start. I'd love to do this. I said, well, I don't have a deal for you today. I don't have a deal for you today, but I'll put your money to work for you just as soon as possible. So then, how do I get my deals funded when I got a deal for them to fund without ever pitching a deal? Brandon, I've never pitched a deal since 2009. So how do I get it funded? Here's the secret sauce. The answer to that question is the good news phone call. The good news phone call. Well, how's the good news phone call work? Well, I'm going to give you the script. I'm going to give you the script right now. So, Brandon, let's say you're one of my new private lenders and you've told me you've got $150,000 to work with. And, you know, I've told you I'll put your money to work for you just as soon as possible. And let's also assume it's not liquid capital. Let's assume that it's actually retirement funds. And I've introduced you to the self-directed IRA company that I recommend. And you've moved those retirement funds from a 401k or wherever over to the self-directed IRA company. Now you've moved it over there. It took you a couple of weeks to get there. Now you're ready to fund my first deal. You're ready to go. You're just waiting for the phone call. So I call you up with my handset telephone right here. I call you up and you answer the phone and we have a little chit chat. And then here's exactly what I say. I say, Brandon, I've got great news for you. I can now put your money to work. I've got a house over here in Newport, North Carolina, under contract to purchase. It's got an after repaired value of $200,000. The funding required for the deal is $150,000, and of course that matches up to what you've got set aside over there at the self-directed IRA company. And the closing is going to be next Friday. So Brandon, I'm gonna need you to have your funds wired, your 150,000 wired to my real estate attorney's trust account, because that's who's handling the closing, by next Thursday. And I'm gonna have my real estate attorney email you the wiring instructions. End of conversation. Notice I didn't ask Brandon, do you want to fund the deal? That's the most stupid question in the world. I would ask Brandon. Of course, Brandon wants to fund the deal. He's moved that money over to the retirement self-directed IRA company that I recommended. Brandon's not making any money, any interest on that money until he invested. So Brandon has been waiting for my phone call. And of course, I'm not going to bring a deal for Brandon to fund that doesn't meet the criteria of the program that I already taught him. So you see how this lays out sequentially in time. Teach the program. They tell you how much they got to work with. They give you a verbal commitment. This is how much I want to start with. By the way, they always have more than they tell you initially. And then you call them up with a good news phone call and you put their money to work for them. It's that simple. You see, the biggest mistake that I've witnessed and observed with new real estate investors raising money is they talk too much and they try to talk people into doing something. And you know what? That's not the way to go. I've got one foot out the door the whole time that I'm sharing and teaching my program, because there's more money than there are deals.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's incredible. A big thing that you said there is leading with a servant's heart. You would go and teach how to lend money and what to look for. What did that look like? Walk us through that. How did you get that set up? How did you market that teaching, and how did you structure it?
Yeah, so there's multiple ways to get the word out, right? As to let people know that this opportunity exists. So obviously there's one-on-one. You can meet somebody at the coffee shop and tell them about the program. You can leverage your time. I raised $969,000 at one private lender event. What did I do? I booked the Dunes Club. Book the nicest place you can. You're going to feed people lunch. And I invited about 20 people to the luncheon, and I had my CPA there and my realtor there and my realtor there and my real estate attorney I had there. And at this luncheon, I fed them lunch. And then I took about 30 minutes and I presented my private lending PowerPoint presentation that I put together that teaches the program. What's the interest rate they can earn? How they can get their money back in case of an emergency? What's the maximum loan to value, etc. So I teach that. Well, at the end of that luncheon, I ended up with $969,000 pledged from different people that were interested in moving forward. So one-on-one. I also recorded a 16-minute audio called Stress-Free Investing that now I just email out. I can text it, to potential private lenders. I record that audio for my members and students as well. And so I'll share a short story. How in the world did I get my first $250,000 from a private lender when I put my program together? Well, here's the short version. It was on a Wednesday night at 7:30. Carol Joy and I go to the Morehead City Church of Christ on Barber Road here in Morehead City. And I went there and I walked in the foyer and I was looking for a gentleman named Wayne. I'd known Wayne for a number of years. And I walked up to Wayne before Bible study started and I said, Wayne, I'd love to talk to you for a few minutes after Bible study. If you got a few minutes. He said, sure. So we got together after Bible study. We went down to the nursery there in the church building. And here's exactly what I said to Wayne. Remember, I never beg, chase, persuade, sell. What do? In this case, I'm going to share a very magical phrase. It's called, I need your help. I need your help. So let me tell you exactly what I said to Wayne. Never ask for money. So I started talking to Wayne. I said, Wayne, you know everybody in this town. And he did. He was the original Zenith television dealer. If you don't know who the Zenith television dealer is, you're just too young to remember life before Walmart. That's all I can say. But anyway, I said, Wayne, you know everybody in this town, and he did. I said, here's what I need your help with. I said, Wayne, when you run across somebody that's complaining about the amount of money, the little bit amount of money they can get in the local CD at a bank, or the volatility of the stock market and losing money in the stock market, would you refer them to me? Because I've now opened up my real estate investing business by referral only, word of mouth, and I'm paying insane high rates of return safely and securely. When you hear somebody complaining about that, would you refer them to me and I'll share my program with them? Well, what do you think Wayne said? He paused for a second and he said, well, now, Brother Jay, what you got going on there? And I said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, what kind of rates are you paying? I said, well, Wayne, are you saying you might be interested? He said, well, yeah, I might be interested. I said, well, why is that? He said, well, my wife and I were only getting 3%, and that's what it was in 2009. We're only getting 3% at the local bank and a certificate of deposit, and we're losing money in the stock market. He said, what kind of rates are you paying on this program, Jay? I said, well, that sort of depends on the deal. I said, but Wayne, what sounds high to you? He said, well, we're getting 3%. He said, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6%. I said, Wayne, I can't pay you 5 or 6%, but I can pay you 8%. He said, put me down for $250,000. So the next day, I went to his and his wife's home, and I took the whole program with them. The interest rate, how they're protected. I don't borrow unsecured money. They're going to get a deed of trust, a mortgage securing their note. My maximum loan to value is 75% of the after repaired value. I didn't say 75% of purchase. I always bring him a big check when I buy the house. And how they're protected, how they can get their money back early. So I taught the program to them. How did I do that? By having my teacher hat on, right? I'm not chasing, begging, right? I'm sharing, I'm teaching. And so by the end of that conversation, they didn't pledge me $250,000. They pledged me $500,000 by the end of that conversation. So there's just a little short story as another example as to how we go about attracting private money without chasing, begging, selling, or persuading.
So these were basically what you did was you pulled out your Rolodex and you started calling people and said, hey, if you know somebody, I need your help. If you know somebody that is struggling with the returns in the bank, if they're tired of earning a quarter point in the bank or 3% in your case, and they're wanting to earn more, will you refer them to me? That creates curiosity. That's the goal on these conversations that I see a lot of people make the big mistake in is they're asking for the business. You ask for advice, and your whole goal is to try to create curiosity where people are now starting to talk to you about it. What do you do when you've tapped out all your friends and family? You've tapped out the network, because that inevitably happens in the real estate world, and the capital raisers lifetime, like there's steps, and step one's like friends and family, and then you grow it and you get referrals, you ask for referrals. There comes a time where you have to do something to generate accredited investors or people who are outside that network. What does that look like with your model?
Absolutely. So you're right. I mean, you're going to run out of your own connections that you have in your cell phone. By the way, you said a moment ago, you were recapping what I said. You said, go through your Rolodex. So for those of you that don't know what a Rolodex is, Brandon is referring to the contact list in your cell phone. All right. So
yeah, just in case there's like some youngins listening. I'm a millennial, and I was kind of getting phased out of that whole Rolodex thing that's by your desk, and you sort through the cards and the business cards on it. Yeah, it is funny. I haven't seen a Rolodex in forever, but I still refer to it as
my
that.
dad actually had a Rolodex on his desk, and it was a Rolodex, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, back to your question. So how do you expand your warm connections? How do you grow your network very, very quickly? Well, I'm going to give you one right now, hands down, that will grow it overnight, exponentially. At least it did for me. And here it is. Pull the curtain back. Business Networking International, BNI. And this organization was started way back by Ivan Meisner. And the way BNI works, and I'm telling you, pretty much every town in America's got one. I mean, here in Morehead City, North Carolina, population 8,000 people, we got a BNI. And so when I joined BNI, Initially, we had 23 members. Now, here's the way BNI works. Business International works is different than civic organizations. Civic organizations such as Rotary Club, which, by the way, I recommend Rotary Club as well. That's a much longer term play because you want to establish those relationships, right? The more people you know, the more money you waller in, the more money sticks to you. That's all I can say. The larger your network has got a direct correlation to your net worth. Correlation between your network and your net worth. Nonetheless, back to BNI, Business Networking International. This organization was created for the purpose of leading with a servant's heart in your local chapter and giving your local, your other members of the BNI chapter leads for their business. Now, the way BNI works is there truly is only one seat per profession in each chapter. There's truly one realtor. That's a very coveted seat. There's only one attorney. There's only one general contractor. There's only one plumber, one electrician, one HVAC, one home, what do they call that stuff? Oils, essential oils. Those ladies that sell essential oils and have home parties. There's only one essential oil lady, right? So on and on and on and on. There's only one water softener company, all right, representative. So now you come into BNI as the real estate investor. I promise you, when you go to your local BNI, there's not another real estate investor in the group. You're it. You're the only real estate investor, right? And so you join the group. The purpose is lead with a servant's heart and give your fellow members leads. Well, my lands, if you're a real estate investor, how many leads are you going to be giving that crowd of people? A bunch, if you're doing any kind of business. So what are you asking them to do? You're asking them to send you leads for people that are not happy with the returns they're getting on their investments. And so you've got a private lender investment opportunity. And once a week, you got 60 seconds to let your other members know who you're looking to get in front of. Well, a lot of times I'll tell my local members, I'm looking to get in front of retired people or somebody that's getting ready to retire. So I can talk with them about how self-directed IRAs, work. I mean, people they'll say, Jay, how do I start making my list of new private lenders? Well, look in your cell phone and make a list of everybody that's retired in your cell phone. Well, there's a pretty good chance they got retirement funds. And in today's market, I promise you there's a good chance they're not very happy with what's going on with their retirement funds. So BNI will explode. I've gotten millions of dollars in new private money from just my fellow BNI members referring people to me that were looking to get high rates of return safely and securely. So there's many other ways to expand your warm market, but that one tip right there will blow you up.
Go out, Business Networking International. I like that. It's like a little mastermind group that's kind of local, that they've got a lot of chapters across the country then. So you're going out.
Yeah, just go to BNI.com and you can look up your local area.
Okay. I know that you've got a new 7-day private money raising challenge. Can you tell us more about that?
I'm so excited about it, Brandon. This is hot off the press. This is called privatemoneychallenge.com, privatemoneychallenge.com. And the way this works is it's 7 days. It's a 7-day series of videos that I just hot off the press just recorded. And each video is only 15 to 20 minutes long. So it's very, very easy to digest. So when you enroll in privatemoneychallenge.com, you'll immediately receive in your inbox, in your email, the first video training. And then the next 6 days in a row at 9 a.m. Eastern time, you'll receive the subsequent video trainings. I'll tell you what, it's very engaging. I'm right there on the video talking with you. I give you just a little bit of homework each day, so to make sure you're learning the information. And it's a great way, foundational way to get started on attracting private money for your real estate deals. if you've never done private money before. And so let's make sure everybody understands, what do we mean by private money? This is not institutional money. This is no banks. This is not hard money lenders. This is getting money from individuals, human beings, just like you and me. And of
Yeah.
course, the big reason as to why you need private money is that if you're buying real estate deals that are off market,
Yeah.
that are for sale by owners, you're missing out on the majority of the deals if you don't have the cash ready to go, because that's what the majority of the people require.
One thing I want to make sure that we cover here, because the SEC, the Security and Exchange Committee, that kind of regulates raising capital. There's laws around some of this stuff. What can capital raisers do to stay compliant? Because there's some people that have an opinion that you're going out and you're selling a security on something. How do you navigate the compliance waters to make sure that you don't end up in jail or do something wrong?
Sure. So there are at least three different ways to raise private money structurally, as far as how you structure it. There is syndication, which you normally syndicate and raise private money when you are doing a multifamily or a commercial type deal. You would hire a securities, an SEC attorney to draw up
Mhm.
the private placement memorandum for that. So there's syndication. There's also, you can draw up a fund to where private lenders can invest in a fund, and then that fund, invest in different properties. So here's why the SEC does not have to be, and is not involved, and doesn't want to be involved, quite frankly, in the way that I'm talking about raising private money. And that is, everything that we do with single family houses is what's called one-offs. Now, there's a legal term for that, but that's the slang. One-offs. So what's a one-off? A one-off means you've got a single family house that's being funded by a private lender, or maybe a couple of private lenders. That private lender, or both of those private lenders, are getting their own promissory note. They're getting their own deed of trust or mortgage that is secured by that property. So no syndication, no funding, no fund raising for a fund. It's a one-off. It's that private lender that is funding that single family house, not an SEC compliance issue.
Okay. So because there's a one-on-one type of structuring there, one investor, one house, that's I guess there's some in the SEC language that doesn't fall under what they would call like a security then.
Correct. Correct.
Wow, this is really interesting. So tell us a little bit more, like, well, what do you unpack in the 7-day program?
Oh, wow. Well, one of the days I'm doing something brand new that I've never done before, and that is I go through an exercise, and there's a document for the viewer, the enrollee, to download. And what I teach is your freedom number. Now, what the freedom number is how much money you need to have or have coming in for you to not only pay for your current bills and lifestyle that you have right now, but also I help you create, well, what is the new lifestyle you want to live? What do you want your life to look like?
Yeah.
Well, how is it that you want to be free? And that's why people get into real estate. So first we create that, but then I reverse engineer during the exercise, and I have the enrollee in the the private money challenge. We're going to figure out how much private money you need to raise in order to do the number of deals that you want to do in your local area. And so I've put together my own trademarked formula that teaches you, exactly how much private money you need to raise in order to have the freedom that you want. So that's one of the days. The very first day in the private money challenge is we go over exactly what is private money. What do we mean by private money, which we've talked about a little bit here, but not much. Then I've got a whole other session on, well, where do you find these letters, like, specifically? So I put together an exercise. I call it your top 44 list. So I teach the enrollee in the challenge how to identify your top private lenders that you have in your Rolodex cell phone. I've got a whole nother session, a whole nother day on how to work with self-directed IRA companies in order to get your real estate deals funded. So I go into a lot of detail. I don't hold anything back. I really lay out the carpet, pull the curtain back, and teach a lot about private money to get somebody started.
Wow, this is fantastic news. Yeah, this is a game changer for your business. And again, the same principles that he's talking about are similar for, raising capital in any endeavor. Always consult an attorney before doing that, right? Neither Jay nor I is an attorney, so always make sure you consult an attorney to make sure that you're compliant and, not doing anything wrong. But the same stuff, no matter what you're raising money for, can be applied. Same tools. Jay, for those that want to learn more about you, learn more about your program, where can they go?
Sure. So, of course, all my contact information is right there at www.privatemoneychallenge.com. And then, in addition to that, come check out my podcast. I mean, you're listening to Brandon's podcast. Odds are you like podcasts. You can find me very, very easily on all the platforms. Just search for Raising Private Money. And there I am on the podcast. And of course, I actually talk to people on the telephone. Can you believe that? I mean, you call me up and I actually pick up the telephone. But I'm easy to find at jayconner.com, and that's with an ER, not an OR, JAYCONNER.com.
We'll make sure that gets posted in the show notes. Jay, it's been a pleasure.
A pleasure, Brandon. Thank you so much for having me, and God bless you.
Yeah, and if you're listening to this episode, show Jay some love, show me some love, subscribe to the channel, share this with your friends and family. We will see you guys next time.
Are you feeling inspired by the knowledge you gained in this episode? Then head over to jayconner.com/moneyguide. That's JCONNER.com/moneyguide and download your free guide that shares 7 reasons why private money will skyrocket your real estate investing business right now. Again, that's jayconner.com/moneyguide to get your free guide. We'll see you next time on Raising Private Money with Jay Conner.